Welcome back to another episode of Student of the Game podcast. I'm super excited today to bring my guest to you, my brother, Greg Johns. Thanks for being here.
Happy to be here. Excited.
Well, hold on. You got a little accent for being my brother. We're going to dive into this a little bit. So currently, right now, Greg is the Vice President of Sales and Training at Hagerty. Hagerty is a global brand, and we'll get into that on how they got their start. But Greg, where are you from? Are you from America?
I'm from England and came over here when I was 17 years old.
Well, I think the thing that I've struggled with the most is when people ask, "Who are you?" I'm like, I don't know. My brother, my foreign exchange student. It's not a foreign exchange student, exchange student. So there's a bunch of different ways I can describe you, but the way I feel most comfortable describing you is you're my brother. So you lived with our family for 2 years, and you have a very, very interesting story. But right now, as a vice president of sales and training, I'll get into your background a little bit and what you're doing. But I think the listeners really want to hear how you came to America. My mentor, Brian Buffini, wrote a book called The Immigrant Edge, How to Make It Big in America. And when he wrote that book, I couldn't help but introduce you to it, Greg, because as you leave your home country, there's a quote that I want to talk about that Brian has in the book. It's the very first page. And he says, "To every courageous person who has ever packed everything they owned into a suitcase and left everyone they loved to pursue their dream, you are the fabric of every great society." Greg, you're the fabric of a great society. So let's talk about Hagerty for a second. Hagerty is an insurance company that specializes in classic cars, collector car insurance, founded in 1984. I know we have a great story about how that got started. And Hagerty has grown to become one of the leading providers of insurance for vintage, classic, and collectible vehicles. You guys are now a publicly traded company. I will watch what I say here, but hopefully we can make the folks at Hagerty proud. And in addition to insurance, Hagerty also offers various resources and services for classic car owners. They provide valuation tools to help owners determine the worth of their vehicles, as well as network of trusted repair shops and restoration experts. They also publish a magazine and produce videos and articles on classic cars, offering a wealth of information and entertainment for enthusiasts. Hagerty is known for its passion for classic cars and its commitment to preserving automotive history. They leverage this by excelling in the client experience. You're speaking my language, the client experience, man.
That's what we do. That's what we do. That's what differentiates us in the collector car space. There's a lot of other insurance providers out there. And much like your world as a real estate agent, one of the biggest ways that we can differentiate is by delivering a differentiated client experience.
Well, we're going to get into that because I know there's a lot of small business owners that listen to this, whether they're realtors or barbers or, anyway, if I own a gym, I can learn a lot about the client experience. You have a ton of data now being a publicly traded company about what metrics you look for and how businesses can really grow and really how they can get around some of the challenges that they're experiencing today. I know for me, and I know for my wife, the first challenges we have is we don't have any clients. We have a baby business, we're starting off and we want to grow the revenue. We want to grow our clients. And that's a challenge. And then all of a sudden you grow your clients, you grow your team, there's going to be more challenges. And I think you can offer a lot. But before we do that, let's get into your story a little bit, because how to make it big in America. Who would have thought I'd have a brother from England, right? A brother from another motherland. Hail the queen, or whatever we say. But let's talk about your journey. How did you get to America, specifically to our family? And let's take a few minutes diving into you, Greg Johns.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And it's one I look back on, and I can't help but smile when I think about it and think about all the things that came into place at the right time and the right moment for all of this to happen. I started playing basketball at about 14, so pretty late. I played soccer growing up, but found basketball when I was about 14.
Great. This is an American podcast, but you can still say football.
Okay. Thank you. Because if this goes to England and they hear an Englishman saying soccer, it's not going to be good. So I appreciate it.
I know. Equal opportunity here.
So I started basketball pretty late. I grew pretty big. I was 6'4" by about 15, 16. So basketball worked out for me. And I happened to go to a basketball camp that I wasn't even supposed to be at. My basketball coach called me and said, "Hey, do you want to come over and do a camp? We've got some American coaches coming over. And one of those coaches was your dad, Doug Noll. And so I went to that camp, and we got talking. My mom got talking to Doug about the fact that I wanted to come over and play in the U.S. I don't know if Doug knew what he was signing up for right then, that he was gonna, get another son, but it ended up working out that I came to stay at the Noll house for 2 years.
Uh, I mean, we have kids right now that are close to the age that you were at. I mean, can you, if you're a parent out there right now and you're thinking like, oh, I'm sending my kid to summer camp that's 2 hours away, I'm nervous. Like, this is absolutely radically different than sending your kid to summer camp. This is, your mom, doesn't know who we are, right? Like, met this basketball coach at a camp one time. Tell me about your mom a little bit. Like, what was in her? Like, why would she just let her son go to another country and live with people she doesn't even know?
I've asked her that question, and it's like, was I that bad of a teenager that it was like, we got to move him halfway around the world? But in all seriousness, I think my mom is definitely one of my heroes. I think she is always been my biggest supporter, and she's always been wanting to help me achieve my goals. And we all need people like that in my life. Growing up, my mom was a single mom, and she'd be working all day, and she would, after work, be taking me, driving me a couple of hours to basketball practice, a couple of hours home. You don't realize as a 16-year-old, like, what a big commitment that is. Now I work all day, and, thinking about driving a few times a week, a couple of hours there, a couple of hours back, that's a lot. And so she was always very, very willing to help me pursue kind of my goals and dreams. And so she knew I wanted to go to America, and, she was just so, so supportive of making that happen. And I think it says a lot. I'm a parent now. My eldest is 14, and to think about kind of sending him away halfway around the world right now, that's really hard to even imagine. So
And there's more technology today. Like, even if you sent your son, and there's FaceTime or there's instant messenger or social media, you can keep tabs on them pretty easily. But I mean, your mom, like, do we do collect calls, or how did we communicate with her?
oh man, like, we're showing our age right now, right? Like, we used to have the calling cards, right, with about 50 digits that you would type in on the back, and you
Yeah.
got like 60 minutes and stuff like that. So I think I called her like once every couple of weeks, maybe. So yeah, technology's changed a lot.
Well, let's dive into this, because I think this is going to help a lot of small business people, a lot of people in general. But how to make it big in America? Your story's fun, right? They can make a movie about your life, Greg. Like, so you grew up playing soccer. We're in America, so I'll say soccer, but you better not say soccer. You grew up playing soccer, and you found basketball. You start growing. You're tall. You want to go to America, and then people just think, oh, you just decided to go to America. I made up my mind, and then you just did it, and then you lived with the family, and you had a good high school career, and then you played college basketball, and the rest is history. But I think so many people need to hear where you struggled and where some of the challenges were, so that they can see themselves in your story, so that they can have hope and inspiration that what they're going through is not that big of a deal. We learn, through adversity. And my wife and I always talk about, our goal is to have controlled adversity for our kids. We don't want to remove adversity. And I think, if I look back on my life, and I'm sure you're the same way, the adversity is where the teaching is. The adversity is where the lessons are. One of my favorite stories about what happened is, talk about coming to America. Did you have to go get a visa, or you had to go to the embassy, or what was the process like of getting over to America?
Yeah, yeah, it was definitely not an easy process to be a 17-year-old trying to come over to public school in America, and there's a
And you
ton of.
were you were not part of a foreign exchange program, right?
No, no, I was not.
Okay.
So it was doing it all ourselves, trying to figure out all the paperwork. We got some help from the people at the school, but the first time we went up, and we had to go up to London to go to the US Embassy. And it was only kind of 3, 4 weeks before I was due to fly out to America. And so we went up to the US Embassy thinking we had all our paperwork, everything was paid for, and they declined my visa. And so they're like, you can't come. So all of a sudden, my dreams of flying over to America in 3-4 weeks, they're like completely shattered. Like, I'm like, well, what do we do? Like, I didn't even have a backup plan. I didn't even know what I was going to do like the next year. If I was staying in England, it was like, oh, like, I didn't think this could happen. And so that was a really, really tough moment. And my mom at the time, I remember her saying, and she's always been, as I said, a great supporter. We came home, we were all disappointed, and she said, well, maybe it's just not meant to be. And so I got on the phone with your dad and I told him what happened. And
Pause right there for a second, Greg. So I'm curious as to what happened next, but your mom said it's not meant to be.
yeah,
So this is really important. So in real estate, a lot of times, we have buyers and sellers that are making offers, putting their houses on the market, and a lot of times, we make a lot of decisions based off of faith, but we hear a lot of times, somebody will make an offer on a house and it won't go through, and they'll be like, well, maybe it's just not meant to be. Right. If you're starting a business and you've had some roadblocks, are you allowing your roadblocks to be like well, maybe it's just not meant to be. Right. And so you had a crossroads, like, so you got denied, you didn't get the paperwork through, your mom says it's not meant to be, who's the most supportive person in your life at this point, and you're 16, you're like, okay, well, maybe she's right. So then what happens next?
So I get on the phone with your dad and probably have one of the most important conversations of my entire life. And it sets the trajectory for where I'm at today. So we get on and I explain to him like what happened. And, he asked, well, can you reapply and go again? The big challenge was around the school fees that needed to be paid. And so I was like, well, yes, we could. And he was like, these words ring in my ears so many times. You know, what's it worth to go up there one more time and try it? It may change your life. And so
Wow.
I remember going back to my mom and I'm like, I really want to do this one more time. Like, can we go up and just try this one more time? And she was like, okay, let's do it.
What do you think some of the challenges were for her at that point? Like, do you think she lost hope? Do you think financially it was like, we can't do this? I mean, are you borrowing money? Like, what were some of the pain points now that you're an adult and now that you're a parent? What do you think she was thinking through?
I mean, there were a lot of strains financially, of just even the cost of going back up to London and those, let alone the costs of the fees that we now had to pay for me to come over. And, my mom's family is absolutely, amazing. I felt like we passed the hat around the family and everybody donated and we got the money together. And so we went up and met at the embassy, that one more time. And I think it was literally maybe 10 days before my flight was due to go out.
Wow. So there was no GoFundMe at this point.
No.
There's no Venmo. Like, hey, just Venmo me. I need to go back up to London.
Yeah. Yeah. It was.
And now we're sitting here and your family passes the plate. I mean, how instrumental is that? Like, here's what I think about. I think about all the times that we have goals and we have dreams and we don't tap into the people who know, like, and trust us. I think as humans, we tend to forget how much people do want to help us out. I think a lot of times people are scared or nervous to even share their story in fear of, I don't want to feel like I'm getting a handout. Did you ever feel like you were getting a handout from your family?
I definitely felt a little bit, guilty. But they were so gracious in how they gave that money, and they were like very, very supportive that they wanted me to achieve my dreams. And I think that's kind of the first instance where it became really, really apparent that, like, you've got to share your goals and dreams with people, not only to
Hmm.
hold you accountable, but they want to help you, right? The people that really care about you want to see you succeed. And so, that's kind of my first learning of how important it is to share your goals and dreams with others.
I think everybody listening to this podcast right now, if you just hit pause, write down somebody's name, call them right now and tell them what your goals and your dreams are, I think that will change your life. When you tell somebody my mentor told me this a long time ago. When you tell somebody your goals, it holds you accountable. Like, well, better go do them now. So, tell somebody your dreams now, unless it's my children and they want to go overseas for some cross-cultural program and study, they don't necessarily need to go. I'm just kidding. We want to breathe life into the people around us. Having something that you're passionate about, having something that you want to pursue that gives you purpose. We talked on another episode with Lindsay about the difference between seeking pleasure and seeking purpose. Most people think that we just seek pleasure as human beings. And the reality is we only seek pleasure when there's a lack of purpose in our life. So I got to imagine you're 16 years old. You have no idea what purpose means. You don't know what the meaning of life is. You're sitting here as a 16-year-old. You're just thinking, I like basketball. I just want to play basketball.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
so my dad had a conversation with you that, again, was there wisdom in what he said? I'm sure. Did he mean to have wisdom? Probably not. But we don't take no for an answer. When you have a made up mind, you'll find a way. And going back up there ended up resulting in changing your life forever.
Yep. Yep.
So now you come over, you're in America, you're coming over. It's our junior year of high school. And, I remember, you remind me of this, but I remember when you first came over, I looked at your suitcase and I'm like, how long you staying? It looks like you got like 2 weeks worth of clothes, man. What are we going to do here? And you showed up in like some skinny jeans, some 501s, some Levi's 501s and here you are in America now. What was that like, being indoctrinated into the American culture and knowing that your mom brought you over and she's going to leave and you're not going to see her for a while?
Yeah, it was. I remember pulling up to the house the first time, and I think I drove back with your dad from the airport, and there were you and Abby and your mom outside, and you know, it first and foremost, it felt incredibly welcoming walking kind of into your home, and that it was hard, it was challenging, like everything's different, but the family was so kind of gracious and welcoming that it made a tough situation a little bit easier. And, I can't thank you enough for making me realize that 501 jeans were not in the fashion in America in 1997. You saved me a lot of probably problems in high school if I'd shown up the way I was dressed.
Well, so you went from the 501s, which are, the skinny jeans, which are cool now. You're just ahead of your time. That was it. And I tried to get you into these Carpenter jeans, these Tommy Hilfigers, and back in the '90s, and Ralph Lauren, all that stuff. But you had some swag. I didn't realize the English had some swag.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that, but yeah, I always remember that conversation where you saw my little bag and you're like, "So you here for 2 weeks or here for the year?" And I'm like, "The year, I think." And so,
Well,
but
I remember the conversation was like when my dad came home from that trip though too. So let's back up a little bit. So he comes home for this trip, in England, and so okay, call a family meeting, and he's like, so how would you guys feel about if we brought somebody in to live with us? I'm like, okay. What do you mean? Well, there's somebody who wants to come to America and go to high school. And by the way, he's 6'4", he plays basketball and he can dunk. I'm like, yep, let's go. I'm in. I'm in. So I don't want to get too far ahead of the story, but I mean, you're like one of the only people that dunked a basketball in a game in like a decade at our high school. And I'm like, let's bring this guy in. We want to win some games. So you came here. We can fast forward a little bit, but you had a great high school career. We won some games more than we had in the years past. What was it like playing high school basketball in America?
it was a tough transition for me. Coming over to America, I'd never lifted a weight before in my life. I didn't really know what practice, good practice, really looked like. You tell in your podcast it's all about falling in love with practice. I think I look back and I realized I didn't know even how to practice at that point.
Mm.
Practice
Ooh,
for me was
hold on there, Greg. So first of all, you didn't know how to practice or fall in love with practice. I think there's so many people here running a business, or they're running so fast with their hair on fire, with clients or in their job that if you stopped for just a second, took inventory of, Do I have another gear? Could I work harder? You're not going to know if you can work harder. You're not going to know if you're practicing the way you need to until you see it modeled somewhere else. Right. And it's like we all see Kobe and what he's done and his whole, portfolio of practicing. His whole thing was, if I practice one more time a day than you, after 6 months, I'll have 180 more practice sessions. After a year, 365, and you'll never be able to catch me. And what you're saying is you had some talent back in England. English basketball was just taken off, so you were probably ahead of the curve. And now you come over to America and you see like, well, maybe I'm behind. So tell us, student of the game, we want to master the fundamentals, fall in love with practice, and win at the game of life. There's a lot of fundamentals here that I hope people are catching. Some of the fundamentals are: one, you need to have a community of people that believe in you. And that's what you did. You had over there and you have over here, and it's made you successful today. Falling in love with practice. Dive a little deeper. What does that mean for you? And we're talking sports right now. We're talking basketball, but I hope people hear this in the work that they do every single day. I need to write notes to some of my clients. I need to build relationships. I need to see people face to face. Am I doing that at the level that is getting me the results I'm looking for? So talk a little bit about what that was like when you learned what really practicing was all about.
Yeah, I mean, in England, practice was, I'd go to the basketball court, and we had like one outdoor court. And I would be shooting around for hours. But that was just it. There was no purpose to the practice. It was just me shooting from wherever I wanted to shoot, and then playing a few pickup games here and there. Coming over to America was a big education. And fortunately, I feel like I had a great role models of how to learn how to practice properly. Like, I remember watching you and Abby shooting, and it was shooting with a purpose. You were getting up hundreds of shots, and you were doing it at game speed every single day. And then you were lifting as well. And it was just like, I remember after the first week we were in high school, and we had lifted, like, I think every day that week. After lifting, we would go in the gym and we'd shoot 150 shots. And I was just exhausted. Like, I don't think I could lift my arms above my shoulders. I was hurting. But it felt good. It felt good because I could see myself, even in that week, like, I'm getting stronger, right? I'm getting better at some of the things that I need to improve on as a basketball player if I'm going to succeed in America.
Talk because this podcast is for a lot of different people, but mainly small business owners here, and we want to coach them up, so that they can grow into, who they want to be in their business and serve a lot of people. What did you learn from seeing a new way to practice, and how are you implementing that today in your world in Hagerty?
Yeah, this has translated over to every step of my career. I think about, how do I practice delivering a message to a group of senior executives? And so I'm in the mirror, delivering that message, watching my facial expressions, listening for, how I'm enunciating different words. And I'll take it back. My first job out of college, I was in sales, and sales was a big step for me. Brad, you remember this. I was kind of shy. And so for me, stepping into a sales role right out of college was a big jump for me. But I remember, the key part to this is, just like I watched successful basketball players, like I watched you and watched Abby, and I watched what you did and tried to emulate some of that. One of the first things I did was I went to kind of the best salesperson in our group, and I was like, okay, so what do you do? And I'd be watching him, and I watched him on sales presentations, and I'd go home and I'd try to practice how he delivered. And now I didn't want to deliver it exactly the way he did, but there were principles that he did when he was presenting out and he was selling a product that I needed to practice and get better at and emulate in order to be successful. So, everything I do now in life, my wife and I joke, we practice some of the conversations that we have to have with the kids at certain moments, right? When it's going to be a tough conversation. And so, that this principle of practice and good practice and disciplined practice, it translates to every part of your life if you're willing to put the work in.
I loved how you finished with, if you're willing to put the work in. As you're talking, the thing that I'm thinking about is, you probably came over, and I'm sure there were some days that you just had a spirit of gratitude of, hey, I'm in America, I'm playing, that's great. There's got to be some days that you're just frustrated You're like, why is Abby working harder than me? Why is Brad working the frustration of I didn't want to come over here and have to work this hard. I want the opportunity, but I didn't want to have to work this hard. I remember, I'm just calling myself out here a little bit on my podcast, but I remember, as far as like being a student of the game, your the way you approached homework in school was amazing. And I remember coming down the stairs, in the basement, and here we are, and you're doing your homework. I'm like, Greg, why are you doing your homework, man? It's not due for a couple more days. And I don't know if you were just scared to get deported and sent back over to England, or like that was just you. And so I was frustrated. I'm like, what's this guy coming into my house? That wasn't my house, actually. I was a renter. What's this guy coming into our house? And now he's showing me up because now he's also good at basketball and he's a good student. Oh my goodness. All right, here we go. So you pushed me to be a better student, and so I think there's some times that what you said is so important. We have to go find people that we can model, we can emulate, and it's not going to be comfortable. If you want to be a student of the game, if you want to hit your goals and have some successes, there's going to be failures, but there has to be people in your life that push you. If you're the smartest person in the room or you're the highest producer in the room, you got to find another room. And what you're saying is you put yourself in a different situation of coming to America. So, all right, so you're in high school now. Talk about your high school basketball career just a little bit. And then I'd love to transition into, what's it like at Hagerty? Because the fact is you had to go through so much to get to where you are today. And people just need to know that, yes, you've got a high level job at a publicly traded company. And the reality is you're still putting in the same principles, the same practice. You are mastering the fundamentals in different areas of your life. So tell me a little bit about your high school basketball career.
So I mean, it was an interesting transition coming from England to America. And the first year was really, really tough. There were a lot of adjustments. It was a lot more physical. Um, some of the key fundamentals that people had already ingrained in them, I hadn't learned yet, only starting at 14. So the first year was like really, really tough. It was, I think I only averaged like, you know, 10 points a game or something like that. And, in England, I scored 63 points in a game at one point. So you talk about like two very different situations. And so the first year was a challenge. But I think the big thing that I realized is actually I can be successful here, but it's gonna take a lot of work. And I remember going home that first summer between my junior and senior year, and it was like I had my plan set out. It was like I'm lifting 4 days a week. Every single day except Sunday, I'm shooting 200 shots every single day, and I'm shooting it with purpose, and I'm shooting it like it's in a game. And, I remember my friends back in England were like, you want to come out? You want to hang out? And I'm like, no, I got to do this. I've got to do this today. I can come hang out later, but I got to do this. And so that was an interesting summer. The facilities in England, like some days it was like there wasn't a place to go lift weights. So it was like, all right, well, it's just find what you can do a bunch of push-ups, right? And so the facilities weren't the best, but made the best of that situation. And so coming into my senior year, I felt ready to go. Like I was confident, I was ready to go. I put the work in, and we got off to a really good start to the year. Fortunately, we had a great shooter in Brad on the team, a great scorer in Brad, but he shared the ball occasionally with me, and I was able to get some points. And we had a really strong start to the season. But I think about 15, 16 games in, we're playing a game and going up for a rebound, and somebody fell on my knee, and I felt a pop in my knee, and I was immediately down in pain. And so, right there and then, I was pretty confident, like, I don't think I'm going to be able to play for a while. And so all of a sudden, everything that we've been working for, everything that I'd worked for in the off season, all of a sudden, rug pulled out, and I can't. We're going into districts, and I can't play. And so that was such a tough moment for me, especially when I thought, like, I've put in all this work.
Did you have any regrets, or did you like talk about? I mean, the big thing right now in sports and everywhere right now is mental health. Talk to me about your mental health when you get injured. Did you have regrets? Did you know were you upset? You know, you went through this whole process. You worked to get here. What was your mindset like when the season was taken away from you with just a couple games left before the postseason?
I remember, I mean, I was crushed. I remember when they told me like you're gonna have to have surgery, um, and you're not gonna be able to play the rest of the year. And I remember being in tears. I remember crying. Asking all the questions that you do as a 17, 18-year-old kid, like why did this have to happen? Why now? Um, but I had a good group of people around me at that moment. Your family was instrumental. And I think I was able to kind of come through that and see the long-term view as like, don't worry, this is all just preparing you to go play in college at the end of the day,
Hmm.
right? And yes, it's disappointing. You're not going to be able to finish out and you're not going to be able to play in the playoffs, but let's take the long-term view on this and things will work out. And I think at that point in my life, right, I've been through all of these struggles trying to get over here. That actually helped build some of my resilience up. So this wasn't like this didn't impact me as much as it would a couple of years ago. And
Yeah,
so,
well, and what you talk about too, like let's connect the small. Like I love how life just shares clues with us. Like there's a clue right here. You had this long term perspective of, I didn't work this hard to get here and get injured and then stop. Like you're not a quitter. There's a pause, right? But you had this bigger goal. And I think in business, a lot of times when we go through a tough season, and I'll just be transparent, there's been times in our 20-year career where it's been very difficult. But if we have some metrics in place, if we know what it is, where our purpose actually is, that's what's going to keep us going. If you don't have any purpose right now, just stop. Make sure you can write out what is your purpose. What do you love? What are you passionate about? What are the struggles that you're willing to go through to find that? And then who around you, what type of community do you have? And I think those are the things that you're highlighting, Greg. So then you get injured and you're going to play college, but you had this perspective at a young age. Like, listen, my challenges are not in vain. I'm not done. Like this knee injury is not going to define me. It's not my identity. And then you ended up being able to play college basketball.
yeah, I think, as I think about kind of those moments where, you have to persevere through things to get to your goal. I look back and I think about I had a great plan A, but I never had I had a plan B, but I didn't like it very much.
Yeah,
I hated
yeah,
my plan B. I loved my plan A so much that just
yeah.
made me that much more committed. So like when I injured my knee uh and I'm out, my plan A was always to play in college. My plan B
Hmm.
was like, okay, I could go back to England. Well, that wasn't a great plan B from my perspective. So
Hmm.
like I think it's really, really important that like whatever your goal is, you've got to be committed. You've got to fall in love with that goal. Have a
Yeah.
plan B, but make sure it's not a great plan B.
Yeah, I love you said that. Bo Eason has a great book out called "No Plan B for Your A Game." So, like, you're just all in, and I love that. I want to talk a little bit about my mentor Brian Buffini, who you've gotten to see and listen to the podcast. His book, "The Immigrant Edge," and it says how to make it big in America. There's fundamentals to being a successful immigrant, and I think here's the premise of this book, and I'd like to transition into your career a little bit here. The fundamentals of his book is he said there's 7 fundamentals of having the immigrant edge, and the reality is all of us have this. If we tap into it, we're all from somewhere else, right? My ancestry is Swiss and German. We're all from somewhere else, and you just happen to be somebody who has lived in another country and came here. So the fundamentals of an immigrant edge are these 7 things: a voracious openness to learn, a do whatever it takes mindset, a willingness to outwork others, a heartfelt spirit of gratitude, a boldness to invest, a commitment to delay gratification, and an appreciation of where you came from. Greg, you embody all those. And you embodied those before he even wrote the book. And he's spot on. You embody all of these things. Um, how have you lived these out?
Yeah, I mean, when you gave me that book and I read through it, those things really kind of hit home. uh, for me, because at various points in my journey, I've definitely felt those principles that Brian talks about. I think, from a gratitude perspective, I always felt incredibly thankful for the opportunity. And I think we all have opportunities every single day, and we're not always as thankful. And I know I'm not always as thankful as I need to be for the opportunities that I get. But knowing what my mom had sacrificed, what your family had sacrificed, what my extended family had sacrificed to send me over here, I really felt a responsibility. Like, I've got to make the best of this. I've got to do whatever it takes to be successful with this opportunity that quite honestly I've been blessed with. And so, I think the first part of that is, I had great role models in working hard, right? You and Abby work so hard at your game. Like, we talked about Abby, 5'1", right? Let's be honest. You weren't the tallest, but you didn't let that get in your way. You were outworked everybody. And so I've really tried to take that principle forward. Like, as I look around, whatever company I'm in, I don't ever want to be outworked,
Mm,
because I feel like if I'm being outworked, I'm letting my opportunity slip away. I know that if I put in every single effort that I have, I won't have any regrets, right? There's a great, podcast that I was listening to a couple of weeks ago, and it's talking about the pain of regret and the pain of discipline. And you get
hmm
to choose which one you want to do. And so I think by working hard, you eliminate that pain of regret in some regards.
Greg, you hit the nail on the head. One of the things that I hope the listeners hear right now is, and I don't want to make generalizations, because all generalizations are false. But I think too many times in America we just take things for granted, and we talk about opportunity. We throw opportunity around like money, success. These things that just don't last. You're somebody that has a rich history and tradition, and you're somebody who has gone through a lot to get to where you are today. The bottom line is you're giving credit where credit's due. You're taking an opportunity and making the best out of it because of the people that laid the foundation for you to get to where you're at. That's what opportunity means to you. You don't want to let these people down. I think of my grandfather who had 55 years in the real estate business. What would he do with my opportunity today? He was a beast. He's a small town of Bern, Indiana. He was a beast. 55 years, owning a real estate company, and he was a legend. There was no podcast back then. There was no social media back then. What would he do with my opportunity today? And I think if you're listening right now, and maybe you're struggling, and maybe you're struggling because you don't know what your why is, you don't know what your purpose is. Well, I think pretty quickly we can say, I'm going to change my family tree. And sometimes you don't like where you come from, and you need to make a different limb on that tree. My kids will never experience what I went through. Some people that may be your motivation. Sometimes it's my family was amazing. My job is to now leave a legacy for my children, and I need to make sure that their family tree changes. And so I think there's so many lessons here. I think all the time, Greg, and again, I was born in this country, but I think a lot. What would my grandfather do with the opportunities that I've been given? And I think that's the mentality right now that we all need to take. Business is hard. Small business is hard. If you're a barber and somebody's come to you for a year and all of a sudden, they decide to go somewhere else, you got to question yourself. As a realtor, if I see a sign in somebody's yard and I know those people, I'm like, what did I do wrong? you know but if my purpose, if I'm working for a bigger purpose, and it's to create legacy for my children, it's to serve others, which is our highest calling. Now I'm going to come from a deeper place when we talk about opportunities. So thank you for sharing about those opportunities. Let's talk a little Hagerty. Let's talk about the opportunities you have right now. And it's a publicly traded company, and you went from an insurance company. Talk about at the very beginning, what was it like at Hagerty when it was started, back, I think, in the 80s, you said, and where are you at today?
Yeah, so I didn't join in the 80s. I wasn't there at the inception, but it's a fantastic story about a family business growing into a publicly traded company, right? And so Hagerty was started by husband and wife in the middle of the 80s, and their purpose was they couldn't find insurance for their wood collector boats, and that was their problem. So how did they go about fixing that problem? They created an insurance product, right, out of nothing, for just collector boats. And so they started they would go to all of these kind of boat events because that's kind of what they did. That was their fun thing to do. And other people had this problem as well. And so they started selling their product, and they were working out of the basement of their house, just the two of them. And they eventually kind of went into not just collector boats, but collector cars. And it's so funny to hear some of the stories that they went through as a company. One that I love that our CEO McKeel talks about today is they wanted to go on spring break to Florida. The business was just getting up and running, and so they're like, "Well, what are we going to do? Like, how do we like service some of our customers? But we don't have a ton. Like, what do we do?" And they decided to just put a voicemail on. And back then it's like the voicemail machine, right? You got to
Yeah,
be
yeah, yeah,
there
yeah.
to
It's
click it.
stationary, the box.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's the box. And so they drove down to Florida, got down to Florida, they checked the voicemail and it was already full. And they're like, "Oh crap, we got people calling us and we're not going to be able to get back to them. And now we've got people who are calling us and they can't even leave a message." So, everybody loves their spring break. They actually turned around, went all the way back from Florida to Michigan, and went back to work. And I just think that is an amazing mentality and commitment to, first of all, your customers, right? Like
Mhm.
they were willing to sacrifice their time away to build this business and serve their members. And I think that is something that's kind of come throughout Hagerty, is it's always about our customers, the members, and serving them. And I think that's a great story that just shows that commitment from day one.
I was talking to a realtor last night actually, and she was getting ready to go on vacation, and it's like, oh yeah, every time you get ready to go on vacation, business just explodes. Everybody wants to see a house. Everybody wants to, put their home on the market. Can you imagine if like we didn't have voicemail that we could take with us and everything?
Yep.
So if you're listening right now and you struggle, I guarantee you don't have that problem. You don't have the problem of having to turn back around on spring break because you got to check your voicemails. And so now you've come to this spot where, as kind of the upper level management here, talk about sales and training a little bit, because I know a lot of people, want to hear about this. So if you're a solopreneur or a husband and wife team and you're working out of your basement, that's what these people did. And now they're a publicly traded company. So share a little bit about, now that you're the publicly traded company, what are some things that you look for? What are some metrics or some data that you're focusing on as it relates to the client experience, which I know you're so passionate about?
Yeah. I starting off with the training side. And here's where I think I've taken a lot of learnings from growing up in sports and applied them to training. We we try to make it incredibly clear when somebody's coming in. First of all, kind of what is their job, what is their responsibilities.
Like
Second
job
thing is
descriptions.
job description. Second thing is, though, defining out what are the behaviors that they need to do on a daily basis to be successful. And then it's about, okay, the behaviors. Now we got to teach you how
Mhm.
to execute those behaviors. And, some people get on me at work all the time. Like, our training is all role play. It is show me how you can do this. Show me how you would offer this product. Show me how you would sell this product. Okay, let's role play it out again and again. I give you this objection. How would you handle it? And so there's been a lot of principles and learnings that I've taken from practice in sports that have gone into the Hagerty training programs. But I think, the big thing is you got to set people up for success. They got to know what their responsibility is. They've got to know what the behaviors are that they need to exhibit to be successful. And then we got to teach them how to do that successfully. After they're taught, then it's about having the metrics in place it's about the scoreboard, right? How do they know they've been successful? And so
What does winning look like, for sure?
what does winning look like? And so I think that's been very much a big focus of our training. And training's changed a lot, right? We used to do it all in classrooms. Now it's in a remote environment. So there's been a lot of challenges that we've had to really think through when it comes to how do you train 200 people at the same time in a remote environment? And
Mm.
so there's definitely been big changes there.
Wow. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to replay this episode for my team, and we're going to start implementing some of these things, whether they like it or not, because I think that's fantastic. Role playing, no, like who's comfortable role playing? Nobody, right? But it's the repetitive practice. It's why Kobe would start in the mornings and he would start practicing his jump stops. What's he doing? He's jump stopping. Well, he's an NBA legend. Well, yeah, he's role playing the very very small behavior that it takes to be great. Um, Greg, this has been awesome. The fact that we're recording your story and it's going to live hopefully forever, that's a gift to me. Hopefully, it's a gift to you. On this podcast, we talk about mastering the fundamentals. We talk about falling in love with practice, which I'm so grateful that you have this uncanny ability to take your background and now bring it into what's a publicly traded company and use it to move the needle. And then ultimately it's winning in the game of life. Like, how do you win in the game of life? So we'll wrap this up, and I want to ask you, what does winning in the game of life look like to you?
That changes, right, so much over time. Winning in the game of life was very much about me, right? It's like I want to get to college, I want to get to America. um as I got out of college, it was, winning was, moving up in more expansive roles and having more influence. But now winning at the game of life is completely different to me. Winning at the game of life has got to be about me serving and helping others to be successful, because I feel a responsibility to do that, because many other people have helped me get to where I want to get to. So I feel a responsibility to that. I've got a great family, a great wife, great kids. I love spending time with them, and winning for me at the game of life is building lifelong relationships with my kids and my wife, and having fun with them, and ultimately being able to use the talents and abilities that I've had to have positive influence on others, whether that be companies or whether that just be at the individual level. Everybody needs encouragement. Everybody needs help to get where they want to get to. And if I can do just even a little something to help people, I feel like I'm doing a little bit to pay back all the things that people did for me to help me be successful.
No, that's fantastic. And Brian Buffini has The Immigrant Edge: How to Make It Big in America. And as soon as he wrote that book, I knew you needed a copy of it because, like I said, you embody all of those principles. Um, let's give the audience a little behind the scenes here. Let's share some funny stories, man. I remember one of the cars that I used to drive. We called it the BPA, the Buick Park Avenue, and the ceiling was caving in a little bit, and we both had to kind of lean. And if you were following us, it looked like we were almost like holding hands or shoulder to shoulder, and everybody would laugh at us. But that was something that a lot of people, one of the family gatherings, everybody talks about when you dunked Abby's head in the sink. Did she deserve that?
She's going to say she didn't, but I think she did. I'm going to go where she started spraying me first. And so I felt like the next best thing for me to do was to dunk her head in the sink. I wasn't thinking too far ahead. I'm like, I just dunked these people's daughter in the sink. I don't even know them that well. Are they going to like send me back to England or something like that? So, but I'm still here. It's all good.
I think the best part of the story is you and Abby were doing the dishes and I wasn't.
Yeah, that's a really
So
good question. Where were you? Where were you?
I think you guys got in trouble. That was a problem. But that was the actual that's what happened. I remember when you came over, we made this big deal of like, oh, he's 6'4", he's big, he eats a lot, drinks a lot, and my mom, she, bless her heart, she went to the store and she filled up the basement refrigerator with Sunny D and Country Time lemonade, and we didn't drink a lot of pop back then, but like it just was filled with all these drinks and sports drinks and Gatorade or whatever we had, and it's like I think after like a month or two she's like, no, I am not. No, this stuff is gone in 2 days. And like my kids eat a lot now. And I'm like, put that food down. But the amount of drinks and food that we went through was uncanny.
Yeah, I don't know how your mom and dad did it. I know that we never saw the fridge that full ever again in the 2
Ever.
years that
Thanks a
ever.
lot, Greg. But we should,
Yep.
we should have been better students of the game when it came to the fridge.
Yeah, we did not do well with that, but yeah, another one. I remember I got to America, and the first thing we did was play one-on-one basketball, and it was like we didn't know each other, and we were going at it. We were going at it like both of us wanted to show the other that like We can play. We can play. I don't even remember who won that game, but I remember I'm like, oh gosh, there's going to be some battles going on over the next couple of years, and elbows to the face and all kinds of stuff going on.
Be honest though, your favorite part was blocking Abby's shot. That was my favorite part.
Yeah, yeah, and then she would run inside
Right.
and tell mom and dad. Yeah,
That's probably why she's a Hall of Famer and we're not. So
yeah. I mean, I
we'll
think
take the
that
credit
was
for that.
yeah, I think that was definitely helpful.
Okay, so last memory here. So first of all, you come to America, you're playing basketball, you go to college, and all of a sudden you call me one day and you're like, "Hey, I met somebody." Now, first of all, how you convinced Carrie to marry you is still, I'm shocked. Like she is the most amazing person. Oh my goodness, and her chocolate chip cookies. So this is the story about Carrie. So y'all got married twice.
Yep, yep. Hopefully, nobody from immigration is listening to this podcast. But yeah, my wife is fantastic. It was the best sales job I ever did to convince her to marry me. But in order for me to be able to work in America after I graduated college, I had to have my green card. Now, your green card takes kind of 3 to 6 months to come through. So I'm thinking, I'm going to be on Easy Street for 3 to 6 months. I'm going to kick back and I'm going to, relax a little bit. Carrie and I took that one through and we realized that wasn't going to work out super well for us starting off, newly married right out of college. So I called you up and I'm like, hey, like, Carrie and I are going to get married, but here's the deal. We need to get married like now so I can start the process on the green card. And I need you to be there because you're my best man. We're still going to do the wedding in June, but I need you here to be the best man and sign all the paperwork in March. And so, still the weirdest day I've ever had. It was like, you came up, we went, and we did a little ceremony. We had the same pastor, conduct the wedding. We go out to eat after, and they're asking who the reservation should be on, and you're like Mr. and Mrs. Johns, and I'm like, oh crap, I'm married. I'm married right now. And then the funniest was going back into. I was living with 3 other guys playing basketball at the time. Going back into the apartment, and they're like, what you be doing all night? And I'm like, you have no idea. And I just went to my room.
Oh, that's hilarious. And it wasn't until my mom was asking questions at a family dinner many years later that I think she's the one that uncovered that. But that was a fun secret to keep. But Greg, as we wrap up, student of the game thesis is all about relationships win. Your life is laced with people that have come alongside you and have wanted to see you win.
100%.
I want to ask you a question.
All right.
As a kids talk about sending flowers out, the accolades and the appreciations. Who's a relationship? Who's somebody in your life you want to send some virtual flowers out to right now that have been massively impactful in your journey?
Oh man, that's a really tough one. There's so many people that have impacted my life, from obviously your family, high school coach Kirk Glassell, people in college, people in work. But I've got to go back to the person who started it all off at the end of the day, and that was my mom. And her sacrificing so much of her time and effort and energy and finances to see her son kind of go do what he wanted to do. I got to send flowers to Veronica Johns.
Veronica's a queen. Shout out to Veronica. It's my second mom. And I appreciate the fact that she believed in you so much that she was willing to have you go after your dreams. I hope I can be that type of a person for my children. I hope I can be that for my wife, for my team members. I want to love on people so hard that I can bless them to go follow their dreams. And thanks for sending some flowers out to Veronica. So, Greg, thank you for being a guest today. This has been amazing. I want to reiterate, if you've liked these episodes, we're getting a lot of feedback. If you've liked these episodes, share them with a friend. The people that I want to bring to you are people that are important in my life. I'm winning in life because of the relationships that I have. And Greg, you're somebody that you inspire me every single day. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about your story and your journey and what you went through. And it allows me to just roll up my sleeves one more day, one day at a time, and know that, how to make it big in America is having this immigrant edge. And you've done that. So, It's not my job to send flowers here. This is my show, but I'm gonna send some flowers to you real quick and just say thank you so much for being an inspiration. Thank you for being my brother. I'm tired of explaining people the process, so you're just my brother for the rest of my life. Our kids are cousins, and they call you Uncle Greg, and I love every minute of it. But if you like these shows, share them with a friend. If you want to follow us on Instagram, I'm at _Brad Noll _. You can find us on Facebook. We're gonna be putting out a bunch of content that goes along with these shows as well. So, Greg, thank you for being a guest on Student of the Game. And until next time, relationships win. Have a good one.